be working on tuning this bike today with the new Treats Wicked CDI. So we're going to be setting a couple baselines before we get going. So that's what we're here to start out with. First off, explain the bike we're going to be doing this with. This is pretty much the most basic Bellini build you can have. So this is probably what most of you will be running that ignition with. This is a stock bottom end, rebuilt with new bearings and seals. It is running a stock crank with a brass bushing. It has a stock Fantic head that is not a high comp head. It has the same exact squish as the regular round heads, just a little bit bigger fins. It's running a 103 fan setup with a VM18 jetted at a 70, needle about in the middle, and a 17.5 idle jet. I am geared at 1344. That is quite short gearing for those who know V1s. This bike was set up for our old track. There were quite a few turns and then one straightaway, so my goal was about 40 miles an hour at 8,000 to 8,500 RPMs, which this bike achieved. As you can see, it has an Italian circuit pipe. This is an old school circuit pipe built for V1. It's nothing special. It's not modified in any way. Running Tomos bars, new tires and tubes. These are 16s by 2.25, so this bike is average in every way, except for the gearing, which is a little short. I'm going to take this out right now. As it sits, it's going to be the first true speed run on this bike. I'm expecting about 40 to 45 miles an hour out of it with its gearing, with the circuit pipe, again, 8,500 RPMs. I want to set a baseline for temperature and speed so that when I switch over to the Wicked CDI and we get a curve on there, we can see the difference between all the different setups. When running the Wicked CDI, I'm going to run it without a fan and with a fan. So again, we're going to be seeing different baselines based on the setup, seeing how it reacts, if it does better, if it does worse, if the fan shroud is necessary. It should be pretty interesting. I'm really excited to try this out. I'm going to be running an RPM gauge and temp settings up here, so I should be able to look at that and report back. I'm not going to put you guys on the bike every time because I'm going to be doing 5 or 6 different runs. I'm going to be going on the exact same loop. I'm going to be running this around, it's about a 2-mile square. I'm going to bring the bike up to operating temperature, so I can see my temps steady off, and then I'm going to run that again. So I'm going to do that to see how the temperatures fluctuate between the points and the CDI. Right now I am timed at like 1.8 millimeters for TDC. That's the timing that the Bellini kit calls for in the manual. The M18, you can swap this out with the PHBG. It's about the same there. So I'm going to throw a helmet on, put my phone in my pocket, turn that GPS on, come back with some numbers for you guys, see what those baselines are, and then try it again with the CDI. So let's see how this bike does. Okay, let's see what we got. Felt pretty good out there. It is December 26th. It's about 50, 55 degrees out there. It's a little unusual. So I figured I'd get this done for New Year's. So bike ran really well. My needle might be a smidge rich. I'm not complaining. My high temp was 280. I was typically running around 240 to 250, cruising around half throttle, 3/4 throttle. Held it wide open for a mile or two, and I started dropping down into like the 260s or so, as it got some air over that cylinder. So, this is a very well-tuned bike, no air leaks, like I said, fully rebuilt. Should be pretty good. This is definitely a time-tested Bellini. I've been running this for a while, so it's quite broken in. So, let's see what we got. 45, just what I guessed. Let's throw that into the gearing calculator. Let me show that to you. 45. As I was expecting, that's what I tuned this bike to do. Let's see if I remember my RPMs properly. So Marty's Garage, where are we? There we are. Calculate gearing. Looks like manufacturer, Minarelli. V1. We are running 13. 44 with 16.25 tires, 45 miles an hour. Holy shit, that's a little higher than I thought it was. That's okay, that's good. Actually pulling closer to 9K. 88,000 RPMs, holding that real nicely. Super nice ride. would not complain about that on points for a second. Temps are great, motor's running great. We pop the side cover off, and I'm going to go ahead and install this wicked CDI. Now remember, the first time that we run this, it will be ran without a fan. Let me show you the unit itself. This is the whole shebang here. Obviously we'll be running this with a ParmaKit box, but we do have this really nice metal fan on here. You can see it's really tight, which is a good thing. You don't want this shit moving around on you. But for our initial test, I'm going to run this as is, and I'm also going to time it in the same fashion that Treats recommends timing. So I'm not going to do any custom timing on this. I'm not going to do any fluctuations. I want this to be an absolute base model for what you will get if you buy this unit, how it will respond as opposed to your points. I'm expecting a lot better acceleration on this bike. This bike does have an old school race clutch. I would say it feels a lot like a very well-tuned clutch with blue springs. It's just a little bit lighter than the stock clutch. Nothing too fancy. But we're going to be finding out how it does with just the base unit, and then with this nice little seat fan here. Andy Thompson designed all these. He's really good. So let's get to it. I'll let this motor cool down before I take these points off and see how it does. Alright guys, we are going to take the stator plate off real quick and get this thing on. So just a little FYI as I'm doing this, I am just got a phone with Andy. Just wanted to verify some information, and I'm going to be removing this head. I am going to time with a straight port head or a straight socket. Then I'm going to put this head back on so I keep everything nice and consistent. But I'm going to time it with a piston micrometer instead of a degree wheel because I want to make sure I'm exact. This is going to be running the ParmaKit box. All these instructions are on Treats, by the way. The ParmaKit box has a 7-degree curve. So, according to, I believe it was Dana on there, he likes to set these at 2.5, just like an HPI. 2.5 millimeters before TDC. That way, like when it fully retards, it's like 1.8. And as we talked about with the points, 1.8 is exactly where you want to be if you are running a Polini kick. That's what the little manual calls for. 2.5 millimeters for TDC is roughly 25 degrees, which sounds like a lot, but that's about what it is. So that's based off an E50, which has a 43 millimeter stroke, and the V1, unlike some of the V1Ls, this has a 42 millimeter stroke. So it's kind of like, it is not proper. It's not one-to-one, which is why I will be doing this with a piston micrometer as opposed to using my degree wheel, because I want to make sure all my baselines are consistent. Okay, so remember, first test is maybe sans this, so just a heads up, these do run clockwise. And just another little FYI, make sure you Loctite these down. Don't be a Davide. Goodbye, good working point. You were lovely. Okay, stator plate's disconnected. Got a little junk in there. Let's clean this boy up. Okay, so I'm going to pause this, take the stator plate off the rest of the way, and get this boy in, show you how to time it. Okay, so I got my stock head on here. Well, they're both stock, but one with a straight spark plug so I can time it. So, stator plate needs to go on first. Make sure you put this on in the same position that it's going to be when it's assembled. And that's very important because when you're looking at this, nobody saw that. This is an arrow. It's easier to tell when you're looking at the stator plate. It's always across from the area where the wires are attached. So straight across is your arrow. You want to make a point mark on your stator plate. That is your timing mark for the ignition itself. So, but you can't put the bolts into the case without taking the stator off. So we're just going to put these cables through here loosely. And then set this down nicely this time. Put that on there. And we're going to be timing this entirely with the flywheel, but I'm still going to set these I'm still going to set these nice and in the center so that I can adjust this later if I want to adjust my timing a bit. So we're going to take Andy's advice here. Andy Thompson, not my own advice for myself. And he likes to take a ruler, go from that off to the case so that we can see our timing mark. So we're going to make sure that we are doing the same, except there's a ruler. I'm going to use a gapping tool. So we're going to take that right off of there and make a nice little marking on the case. It's the inside of that one. Oh, fuck you. Look at that. Gapping tool bullshit. Okay, so we got that out of the way. Now, piston micrometer. We know that this rotates that way. Just for funsies, we can see that. That's clockwise. We're going to put our piston micrometer in. We're finding top dead center right now. That is really not easy. It's not wanting to stay on the flywheel or on the crank. Okay, there's TDC. Now we know that this spins clockwise. So we're going to turn it back about 180 degrees. We're going to go in 2.5 millimeters on my piston micrometer there. So we are currently at 7. So we go 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we are going to lock it into place. Turn our piston clockwise. Boom. Now gotta put the magneto back on. And we've got 2 marks, clockwise, counterclockwise. So we got our mark down there. We want to make sure we get that piston fully against the micrometer. And then we're going to line up the mark on my case with the mark on the flywheel. So, and then, this is very important, do not use your stock magneto nut, crank nut, whatever. Make sure you use the included one. These have a smaller outer diameter, because if you use your stock, it'll bind. And that is no bueno. So let's make sure that these lines are fully lined up. All right, perfecto. I'm going to guess that that is a 13, maybe a 14. 14 it is. Get that boy tight. Hold that in place. Send her home. I'm going to check my timing again because I feel like it slipped there. So let's double check ourselves. Let's back this up. Screw that in. Find TDC. Oh, that's so much easier. There's TDC right there. Back that up. And we're going to go 2.3. 1, 2. I'm sorry, 2.5. So that's going to go to 9. Right there. Put that down. Up. And no, we are way off. Good thing we checked. It slipped when I was hitting it. That's why we do this twice. Boom. Now we're on exactly where we need to be. Ooh, that was a little scary. Okay. Well, so we are timed at 2.5 millimeters for TDC. I'm going to take this head off and slap on my other stock head so that all of our stuff is the same. Put that back on. Hook up my wiring, which I'll have to figure out real quick, and then we will be in business. Okay, wiring. Red goes to the CDI box, blue grounds, lighting, accessory coils. We're not going to use these two today because we're only worried about making this bike go. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this down a little bit more. The CDI box. On the CDI box, big guy is your go. That's from your coil. Little guy's your ground. So out to my kill switch. Back from my kill switch. I'm going to mount this somewhere. I would like to run my panels again, so I'm probably going to run it back here. It's where the stock coil is mounted on the other side, but I'm going to leave that there so I can switch this back to points if I want. So that's all working now. We got this grounded and power going to it. I'm just going to zip tie this on here for now, just to test, and then we'll find a better position for it later. Gonna get a spark plug boot on here, and I'm gonna go give this thing a test ride. Okay, gotta do this quick because my battery's low. Gonna start this up real fast. What I didn't show you in that last video is that I forgot to ground it, so I plugged the ground in, and voila, it works. Okay, gonna go give this a test. Just to reiterate, depending on how I edit this, timing is set at 2.5 millimeters for TDC. That's it. Beyond that, obviously the lights aren't hooked up. I mean, as you can see, I did not hook the lights up because I don't have a voltage regulator on this bike just yet. I'm not sure I'm going to keep this ignition on there. Whew, God, okay. First impression, it accelerates much nicer. I do think my temps are going to be relatively stable compared to the points, but overall I think it'll be worse. Will ultimately be better with the fan. That's just my prediction. Let's see how we do. I'm going to go GPS. Run the exact same route, get this thing up to temp, see if we gain any speed. We're gonna find out. Whew. Alright. Sorry, I'm rushing. Sun's gonna go down in a few minutes. Okay. First run. 2.5 millimeters for TDC. No fan. How do I feel? Okay. I have two issues. One, the bike is substantially harder to start. Like, it needs a higher RPM. Like, you got to spin it up a little bit higher. Not really a big deal. Just a little strange. Just a little observation. The acceleration is fantastic. It is much better. The mid-range feels better. It just felt, everywhere felt better. I did have the bike die on me once. I had to turn the idle up a little bit. Makes sense. It's a substantially lighter flywheel. But the temps. Holy shit. I almost cut the ride short because of the temps. If you ran this with a poop kit with no fan, totally cool. You're going to have a good time. They were real high. I got up to, so on the first stretch, so I'm doing about a 4-mile loop after I get the thing up to temp. This is before getting it up to temp. This is like, start the bike, go block, double check all my GPS is on, give myself a little quick glance. I'm at 254. That same stretch, I was at like 133 because of the, I had a fan on the points. It took me a good bit of running to get the thing up to 250. 250 is where I consider the bike warm for this particular setup. As I'm running, wide open, bam, 300. Like, that's not bad. Dude, I run French bikes, all right? I'll run 380 all fucking day. This is a V1. This has a fan. This is a pretty big head. Plea kit is a good, safe kit. It's a powerhouse, but it's a safe kit. I'm starting to run 315, 320, 330. I'm like, okay. And I'm just like varying the throttle. I'm not giving it to it here. I'm doing my thing. I'm just enjoying myself. I'm like pulling up to that light. I'm like, oh, this is a little hot. And normally at a light, that's where that fan kicks in and just brings those temps down. I'm like, 310, 311, 312, 313. It did come down a little bit from that 330 because I was holding it wide open. It's getting some air on that head. Let's bring it down a little bit. I would have to retune this carburetor if I was not going to run a fan, and I feel like my jetting would be so fat to compensate for the lack of cooling that I would feel problematic. I think I'd be so rich that I'm not getting the full performance out of the bike. Which is, that's okay. That's why I'm testing this. The CDI, the curve is nice. The acceleration's great. Man, the acceleration was good. That was night and day. That was really cool. Made this old clutch feel even better. I was really stoked on that. But those temps were nasty. So I'm going to throw the full fan setup on. Obviously I'm going to put the back shroud on and everything. I'll show you guys before I go. I think this is going to bring those temps back down. I'm going to get the huge advantage of that sweet, sweet curve, and also stay nice and cool because fans are dope. Scooters run fans. Come on, catch up, mopeds. So we'll be back and see how it does. So, all right, we are back from the run with the full fan setup on. The fan setup that is intended for the Wicked CDI, that nice CNC'd metal fan, and it was great. We're back. I was really, really worried running this with no fan. And I know I've seen people do that with point setups and pie cards, and I always wonder how the hell they don't overheat, because my temps on that were hot. 320, 330 plus. Those aren't super high numbers. Like I say, if I were running a French bike, and I were to hold that thing wide open, and I saw 320, 330, and nothing above, I would be stoked. That would make my day. This is not a French bike. This has got a wet clutch. The hotter you're running this thing, the worse that clutch is going to perform. It's going to just degrade. Not break down like it's going to blow up, but it's going to degrade in performance. No good. Throw this little fan setup on here. Again, this is using the stock 103 shroud and the 103 fan cover, but it's got the full CNC'd 103 fan that Andy made for the Wicked CDI. I was running 270 to 290, where on the point setup I was running 250 to 270. Yes, it's a little bit of an increase, but my acceleration was phenomenal. I did not gain anything on the top end. I'm still doing 45 miles an hour, but this is still the circuit pipe. I'm pretty convinced that without a circuit pipe, this thing would push well above 10,000 RPMs. It's screaming. It has no trouble getting there. It's not for lack of ignition timing that I'm hitting that wall. It's just a circuit pipe. That's what this bike was built to do. It accelerates phenomenally, and it accelerates even better now. Remember, this was my track bike prior to putting this ignition on. So I follow the instructions of putting that CDI on. Really watch when you're finding it for TDC. I had a really hard time doing it with the ignition not bolted down. I wound up bolting that flywheel on, and I was able to do it much easier. That could just be because it's not quite made it to the crank yet. Maybe it'd work better for you if you're running a race crank because everything's brand new. This has been running points on it for who knows how long. But once I got that timing down, everything worked. I'm super stoked on it. Obviously, I'm going to clean up this rat's nest of wiring because I'm going to keep this on the bike. I'm going to run a little voltage regulator and have everything working on here. So overall, I would say wonderful product, absolutely worth it. CDI, there's the argument CDI versus points all day. Dude, I'm CDI. This thing's not going to fail. That's a well-made part. It's not Chinese. It's not the E50 CDI of the stars. Like, that's a good product. That's some quality stuff. I would definitely recommend it. If you're running some GP racing, I would run that over an HPI just for the durability, the ability to run a fan. If you're running some long stretches, like doing pinball or something, like I did on one of these ones, I would run that too. I think that the lower weight would really help with, again, that clutch fade that always occurs. So, yeah, I'm happy. Thanks for watching. Smash that like button, do all that stuff. Thank you, Treats, for giving me this ignition to try out. Would recommend. Have a good one, guys.